Oh yeah. How we doing? How we doing? What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Full Blast. I'm your host, Raja Burrows, and last video. Let's get some more light here. It's raining outside. It's very exciting. In my last video, we spilled a little bit of tea. Admin Daddy doing a stern, as the kids say. So this is not going to be, what is happening? Oh my God. Holler. Good Lord. Get it together. Get it together. So I wanted to, sort of make, this isn't really like a complimentary video, but I wanted to talk about something in, I guess, the community, but just anybody who's studying objective personality, anybody who likes it, anybody who is playing the objective personality game, as it were. There is something that I didn't realize that I wasn't communicating effectively enough. And I wasn't communicating it effectively enough because I didn't think it mattered. But the more I really sit with it and think about it, the more I'm like, oh shit, that's actually a massive distinction. Okay, we have to I at the very least have to talk about it, because it's something that I take for granted, and it's something that I just sort of do subconsciously. Like I work through the filtering, and like the editing process is just efficient for me at this point. But I realized that I have not explained what I'm doing. So I wanted to take an opportunity to do that. And what that is the difference between using the objective personality system for personal development, improving your relationship to the world and yourself, getting further in life, going through the hero, like whatever it is, like all of that stuff is pretty vastly and substantially different from the optimal way to use objective personality when you are trying to type somebody, get the same type as somebody else, understand somebody's parts, whatever. Because originally I was going to make this video, I was going to call this video, something very clickbaity and inflammatory about like why the savior demon dichotomy is a lie and why you should abandon it. And the more I thought about it, I was like, wait, hang on a second. No. We have to be very clear about the context in which we are talking about this stuff, using these terms, whatever. Because when you are typing somebody, whether it's for your own personal benefit, whether it's, you're in the class and you're trying to get the same 512 type as somebody else, as Dave and Shan, as the class members group, whatever it is, that is a time when using the savior demon dichotomy is not only useful, but potentially, I'm going to say critical, because that's the only way you're going to really be able to type somebody. That's what they mentioned. That is the foundation of typing people objectively, right? And again, in this case, objectively just means more than one, holding yourself to some sort of objective standard. And again, they haven't talked about this recently, but they talked about it before. They're like, there's a big difference between accuracy and precision. And at this stage of the game, they are only concerned with getting the same 512 type, right? Or, getting one of, they're like, I've got it narrowed down to 3 of these different types. Did you get one of these 3? And then the other person's like, yeah, I got it down to one of these 3. And then they can talk about it and do, again, do whatever. But they're not as concerned. They're, they recognize that as of right now, they're still only 2 people. And that it is possible that they could get this, like, for instance, they could type me as, audio INTJ sleep last. And that would be precise in that they got the same type. But if they got, 5, somebody else develops a system, whatever, and 5 objective people are like, no, that man is an ENTJ based on these definition of terms and whatever, right? Then that's different, right? But the reason that when you're typing somebody, it's so important to adhere to and look for the savior state, demon state, is because you have nothing at stake, right? Watching somebody freak out about something doesn't really affect it, especially if it's a stranger. Like, it just doesn't affect you, right? So you can spot these sorts of, inconsistencies and whatever, and, where people are being weird. It's easier to spot in somebody else because you're like, well, I have no skin in the game, and that's fine. So the reason why that is so important is because when people have freakouts, have meltdown, have whatever, right? They really will tend to freak out about the same broad category of things, right? And there are a number of things that you can track, that you can look for, depending on what you find helpful, right? If you're like, oh man, this person is like getting very worked up about something, right? Whether it's they're spiking because, oh my God, NT nerd shit and organization and systems and boop and babop, right? Whether they're spiking high in a savior state or spiking low in a demon state, right? Again, when you're looking for the cross checks, you're like, all right, I have to make sure that if I'm seeing this person get really excited, what I consider to be really excited about organization, about rules, about everything like that, I need to also see them have an equal and opposite negative reaction to chaos, right? There's a great interview, as I've talked about on here. One of my favorite interview series is Off Camera with Sam Jones. The guy's fucking fantastic. He's just a really great interviewer. And again, my favorite my favorite interview on there is the one with Keegan-Michael Key, who is, if he is not my type twin, he is certainly my type cousin. We have a lot animatronically in common, whatever. And when you watch that interview, like, that to me is a really clear example of, okay, I can see this guy freaking out. Oh, good. My camera finally caught up. Good job, camera. Thank you. You can see this guy freaking out in a very positive way. There's a great clip of him talking about, like, why improv is about slowing down. And he's got this, like, really deep basketball analogy. And he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. He's talking about the substitute teacher sketch. And he's like, these are the rules. You have to set up the rules. And then the audience will go with you. Aren't the rules amazing? Incidentally, I don't know what type he is, but Chris Rock has a similar spike. He has a similar spike. So I see a lot of IJ-ness in Chris Rock, weirdly enough. Audio, he has the masculine sensory at the bottom, for fucking sure. But the way that he talks about, like, setting up jokes, he's like, listen, you have to hit the premise. You have to hit the premise hard and often, because the audience will forget and they won't be along for the ride. Like, once you once you hammer in the premise, then the audience is great. But you have to, again, and it's this idea of you have to set up the rules of the game, of the comedy bit, of the interaction, whatever it is. The IJs are super, super, super clear, and they spike in a very high, excitable way about, okay, these are the rules. Do we all like these? Again, if it's a, especially if it's a blaster IJ, holy shit. Do we all like these rules? Do these rules work for everybody? Can we all do this thing together? Right? But then you will see that same person, you should see that same person freak the fuck out when something unexpected happens. Right? Again, you have to watch a lot of footage. You can't, you have to, again, get the right clips and really look at the person and whatever. But that's when tracking savior and demons is really, really useful because, listen, if you fucking try to type me, right? If you go out, if you didn't know me and I haven't been in the community and you just tried to type me, right? And you just saw me getting really excited about people, right? Like, oh my God, that person is fantastic. I love that person. I've learned so much from that person. Let me tell you this story about this person, right? And I'd get really excited and spiking. And you're like, clearly an EJ. Clearly an EJ. Here's the problem. I'm just an excited human. Like, you have to watch enough footage of me to figure out what my baseline is. You have to know, like, okay, this motherfucker is just blast play cranked up more than the average person. I remember, so AOC, she is my double feminine half sister, as it were. Same INTJ, blast, play, consume, sleep. But she's double feminine as opposed to audio. And a lot of people think that she is, an EJ, ENTJ, whatever. Again, because she just hammers people and she's all about the people. No, she's just a cranked up person. Like, you can't look at just one clip and be like, well, that's clearly a savior state. Okay, sure, probably. But as far as EJ versus IJ, you need to watch enough and be like, okay, well, how is this person talking about control and chaos? Like, is this person talking about things a lot? Or are they a Joe Rogan where it always comes back to the people, right? When they're in a sort of excited, spiky kind of state, right? And then again, on the flip side, you got to see the person, like, does this person have a negative, like a really low opinion of self and be like, no, it's not about me. It's about this other person, and other person deflecting. Or are they willing to go back and forth a little bit better, right? Again, you just have to watch people for long enough to really get a sense of who they are. Again, just to reiterate, when you are trying to type someone objectively, using the savior demon dichotomy is not only useful, it's essential. I don't think that you can realistically type somebody well and consistently if you're not imposing this savior demon dichotomy. I just don't. Because you need that, like, very black and white clarity, because it's just 9 binary coins. It's just 9 binary coins over and over and over and over again. So the more black and white you can make the things, that's how you get the results. Here's the problem. Life itself is not black and white. Growth is not black and white. It's a process. It's a lot of things. And I think that certainly where a lot of my rhetoric breaks down is when I talk about stuff like, savior and demon doesn't matter. I am taking for granted that everybody has the same goals as I do, which is ludicrous. Of course they don't, or maybe they do. I don't fucking know. But I am very, very all in on the self-growth aspect, the, engaging more positively and productively with the world around me aspect of objective personality. And when we're talking about self-growth, I have found increasingly, both in my own life, in observing others, I don't find the savior-demon dichotomy to be particularly useful. I just don't. Because I think that it raises the stakes on something where the stakes need to be as low as possible in order to make progress. Okay, let me try this again. When you impose the savior-demon dichotomy on your personal growth journey, it has been my observation and experience that you are more likely to raise the stakes on a process where lowering the stakes is crucial for success. So I go back to, our buddy James Clear, shocker, INTJ Raja is referencing INTJ James Clear. I know, it's amazing. But in this case, he's actually right. He is actually right. The man fucking knows what he's talking about. Because when he talks about how do you go to the gym, like how do you make going to the gym a habit, you have to break it down into all of the different elements that go into going to the gym. So if you were to think about like making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, at this point, look, honestly, once you're over the age of like 7, you can probably just fucking make a PB&J, right? But if you're learning how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, there are so many steps. Like when you really break it down, right? It is step 1, do I have the ingredients? That's a whole step unto itself, right? Do I have the ingredients to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Do I have a clean knife? Do I have peanut butter? Do I have jelly? Do I have bread? Those are things you need, right? But then, you can get really minute with the steps that go into making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. For instance, take the knife out of the drawer. Place the knife on the counter. Go over to the cupboard. Open the cupboard door. Take out the peanut butter. Check expiration date on peanut butter. Close cupboard door. Come back to counter. That's already like 6 steps there, and we just fucking got peanut butter, right? The reason why I am moving away in my personal life from the savior-demon dichotomy is that I don't want anything looming over me. Like, I don't want any loaded emotional energy when I'm doing such teeny tiny minute steps. I don't want anything, right? Because now I just have this abundance of consciousness of like, okay, well, what are the stakes? What does this mean? What am I really doing? Am I being present enough? What are my thoughts drifting? Should I bring my thoughts back? Oh no. Is this indicative of a demon state? Oh no. Right. And you're like, oh my God, dude, just fucking make the PB&J. It's fine. I promise you're fine. Right. And I think that when we're talking about personal growth, lowering the stakes is actually a more effective tactic than we might think. And the reason I say that is not that low stakes are inherently good or bad, but we have to recognize First off, if you're watching this, it means you have access to the internet, and it means you are comfortable enough with the internet to use social media, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or whatever, right? Social media and the internet in general artificially raises the stakes of everything all the time. So the healthy part of raising, of like, ooh, the stakes are a little high. All right, I have a chance to prove myself, and there's something on the line here, right? It's why if you're learning how to play poker, you should, they say, or blackjack or whatever, you should play with real money because you're more inclined. Like, again, it's about understanding your emotions, controlling your emotions, being in touch with your emotions, whatever, right? But the internet does that for us. We don't need to impose anything onto the process, an extra to give what we're doing just that little bit of raised stakes. The internet's already doing it for us, so we don't need to do it. And again, other things I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing that, like, again, that's a component to all of this. Doing personal growth and self-growth in the age of the internet is so wildly different from doing personal growth in, say, the 70s. Here's a great example now. Fargo season 2. Okay, so Fargo season 2, not a great season, I'm going to be honest. So season 1 took place in 2006. Season 2 took place in 1979. And one of the main subplots of it was the Kirsten Dunst. She's the wife of this guy. And again, it's Fargo. It's inept criminals. It's, again, lives in the Fargo universe. But I was going to say, oh yeah. So the big thing with her is that it's not like a cult, but she gets sucked into these like Tony Robbins-y type conventions, where it's like, these personal growth and unleash the, your inner power. It's, like this self-actualization and pop psychology, which was really popular in the late 70s and early 80s, right? It was a very fucking different time 40 years ago. Because there was no internet, right? Certainly not the internet that we know today. There were no Insta yogis. There was no real competition in the same kind of way, right? Yes, there was again the fake bullshit competition of like what JP Sears sort of makes fun of, like, I'm the most spiritual person. I'm more spiritual than you. Like there was certainly that component, and the like using your own self-growth as a way to like be snobbish to the people in your inner circle, whatever. But the key is that your inner circle was really tiny comparatively. Especially if you lived in, South Dakota or Minnesota or, one of those type places. If you didn't live in a big metropolis like New York City or Los Angeles or something, one of those real fancy places. But if you're just sort of living that small town townsfolk life, then heck, that's your options are limited. Your options are a little limited when it comes to who you can impress. So I bring that up because if you are going through the self-actualization thing in 1979, that actually might have been a really good opportunity to be like, okay, wait a minute. If I don't do this, I'm just going to be able to skate along, and the world isn't going to kick my ass enough, you know what? Maybe I need to like turn up the heat a little bit. Like maybe I do need to raise the stakes on what's going on here. Just to sort of kick my ass a little bit and get myself in gear. And I think that was true in 1980, but I don't think it's true in 2021. I just don't. Because I think that the mere act of being on the internet, period, and being on social media, period, is going to give you that feeling of, oh shit, I gotta perform. Like I gotta really fucking do this. Right? It just is, I think. So as a result, I think it's just important to recognize the world in which we are trying to grow. So as I mentioned before, like I'm an SAT tutor. I mostly high schoolers, couple of middle schoolers with different tests, but like usually it's the high schoolers. And one of the things that I have been talking about with my students is, like, again, especially this week, like how I do pretty regular check-ins of like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Especially this week, because America has a new president. And that just changes things. Because what I tell my students is like, nobody preps for this test in a vacuum. That just isn't how this works. You are always learning something and learning this test or learning this whatever or working on this thing in the larger context of all of life, right? And one of the things, like, I'm going to be honest, a lot of my students did not make a lot of progress in October, November, December, and early January. They just fucking didn't. They did fine, but it was not like, they weren't like, kicking ass and having breakthroughs all the time, because so much of their brain space, and I think everybody's brain space, truly, and I mean this, whether you are a liberal or a conservative, your brain space, you had to reserve space in your brain just to deal with like whatever Trump happened to do. Because I mean, it really was, again, for those who are not in America or following politics, it really was 4 years of waking up every day and genuinely wondering if my president started World War III at 2 a.m. because he was mad and taking a shit. Like that was a very real, literal concern. It just was. That was a legitimate concern. And so we had to reserve this brain space for, oh my God, like what the fuck is going to happen? Like what is going to happen? What could happen at any moment, right? Like, and that's an exhausting way to live. And there's no way to like, grow and move through life and do shit when you have this brain power reserve that you feel like you can't touch. And especially in, November and December, it was, let me put it this way. I learned more about the election process than I ever cared to know. Like the actual mechanics of a president being elected, we had to follow it. We had to be apprised of it. We had to be like, all right, what are the contingencies here? Like, what's going on? And I know that some of that is because I'm an IJ, but I know like that's been a universal, like I know my EJ friends have been thinking about that. My EP friends were thinking about that. My IP friends were thinking about that. Like, it did not matter what your saviors or your demons were. It really was just like, okay, what are we dealing with today? Right? And a lot of my students were like, I don't have the brain power to get better at this. They're like, and again, a lot of my students would say things like, I would do the homework and I just don't feel like I'm learning. Like, I don't have the brain power to do it and think about it at the same time. And I was like, don't even trip. This is not the time to be like worrying about this or thinking about this. You're not taking the test until April. It's all good. Don't worry about it. And now I can just tell, like, there's been like a definite switch of them being like, oh, I have room to, like, I have energy left over to put into this. Hell, even in my own life, there's just been a bunch of random shit that I haven't dealt with for the last 2 to 3 months because I didn't have the fucking brain power for it. Including but not limited to, setting up recurring payments for my healthcare plan, setting up, clearing out some boxes and some supplies, and again, just like a bunch of, like, I had to order some new sponges from Amazon, and I had to, I had to move this altar space from where it was to over here, which meant I had to sage the area before moving it. And I was like, these are just little dumb things, but that I don't have any brain space to do. Like, I don't have any extra reserves. Like, I'm just getting through the day. And I bring all of that up in the context of saviors and demons when we're talking about personal growth, because going on the internet and just existing today in 2021 is gonna make you fucking aware of your saviors and your demons. Like, the stakes will feel high artificially already. You don't have to do anything about that. So one thing that I've been really big on preaching, that I intend to continue to preach for a while, like, this seems, I don't know, man, it's really been working for me for sure. But is the idea of be appropriate to the situation. That's been my mantra for 10 years since I graduated college. I've had that in my mind and thinking about that. But when it comes to type and dealing with things, and dealing with whatever difficulty is facing you, whatever problem is in front of you, you are almost always going to be better off using the right tool for the job rather than the tool that you are most proficient at. Using the right tool poorly is better than using the wrong tool well. Almost always. Almost always. For instance, if I have to nail something into a wall, a screwdriver is not the right tool for the job. It just isn't, right? Again, in this analogy, a hammer is TE and a screwdriver is TI. Don't take that one to the bank. This is just a dumb example, right? So if I'm like, listen, I can fucking hammer shit all day long. I'm good. I am Mr. Hammer Guy. If you need something hammered, I am the fucking hammer man. 100%. But sometimes I need to, like, screw things in, right? If I try to go, you know what? This motion is just not really my friend. Like, I'm much more comfortable doing this. This is not my friend. If I then go, all right, well, listen, I know that this is a demon for me, but I know that it's important to do it. And I know I want to use the hammer, but I shouldn't use the hammer to try to hammer in a screw. I have already made the problem way bigger than it has to be. If you see that a particular problem requires TI, just fucking do TI. Just do it. Do it badly. Do it badly, right? If a particular problem, so like I don't have TI or FE or NE or SI. Like those are the 4 functions I don't have, right? According to this model. I'm going to say virtually every time I have tried to TE a problem that really required TI, I have not been as successful as I wanted to be or could have been. It was very much an instance of, I don't like having to do TI right now, maybe, but that doesn't really matter. I just need to use TI, right? And then in the moment, use the right function for the job. If you're trying to connect with somebody, I don't give a fuck where FE is in your function stack. I don't care if you are, double masculine INFP, with your lead feminine FI. So masculine FE is going to be like the hardest thing in the world. I don't care. If connecting with somebody emotionally is what is needed for the situation, just do it. Just do it badly. Do it badly. There was a great quote, and I saw it on Reddit, and I don't remember who said it, but it's fucking brilliant, and I love it. There's this guy, and he was like, my professor always said, anything worth doing is worth doing badly, right? If it's worth eating, like eating healthy, right? Eating vegetables is really, really important. And it's so important that even if you only eat half as many vegetables as you're supposed to eat, that's still better than eating 0 vegetables. You don't need to eat 100% of vegetables. If all you can do is 50, that's still better than not doing the thing that's good for you, right? And I like that. I like that a lot, because here's what that does. So I'm gonna, I keep referencing sales, right? And I am not great at sales. I'm not great at sales. I don't remember if this was in the pre-interview or in the interview itself that I just did with Reggie. But because he's in sales, and I was talking to him about like, how the fuck do you do sales? Like, I've never been good at it. And he's talked about it. Like, you got to find a process that works for you. And we turned it into an observer conversation. It was fucking great. But the last couple of sales jobs I did, they were very, very FE based, because it was sort of a human resources thing. I was doing recruiting, or like, selling tutoring programs and pitching tutors to different families and finding good matches. And so it wasn't block banging. So my TE was not the right tool for the job. It was very much FETI was the right function, right? It was the right function axis for this job. And what I realized is, I was like, okay, it was great because it got me to be more aware of FETI and how to use FETI and to appreciate FETI. And so in the moment I did it. But then after doing that for a week and being really stressed, or, a couple of weeks or a month or whatever I had to do it for, I was like, oh shit, I just need to not be doing this job. Like, I need to find something else that doesn't force me to use 100% of the functions I don't have, right? And I think that is perfectly fine, right? In the moment. So like, again, like if you're in a relationship with somebody and they, let's say there was a great, I just saw that it was like a stand-up storytelling thing. It was really interesting. Gianmarco Soresi is the guy's name. Very, very funny guy. But he was telling the story about going skydiving and how he had just broken up with his girlfriend after college, and he was doing this and that and whatever, right? And he was talking about how like he was freaking out about going skydiving, and he was Skyping with his ex-girlfriend because she was apparently, I guess they were on good enough terms, and he was like, I can't, like, please, like, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? I don't know. And apparently he freaked out for like 7 hours. And she was very kind, and she like talked him down and was doing whatever. And that's the sort of thing where it's like, oh shit, okay, this person is having a freak out. This person, like, the right tool for the job is blank, right? Whether it, again, I don't know what the conversation was, but if it was an FE conversation or a TE or an NI conversation, whatever, right? Do that in the moment. And then on the back end, go, okay, is this something that I have to do all the time? Because if I have to do, if in order to be in a particular job or a particular relationship, if I have to use my FI 100% of the time, then it's not the right relationship, right? If I have to use FE at my job, then it's not the right role for me in this organization. And no harm, no foul, but that's just a thing you got to know, right? So when we're talking about these long-term things, understanding what stresses you and what buoys you is really, really important. But I bring all of this up in the context of savior versus demon because in the moment, when you're dealing with something, adding the extra stakes or awareness of like, ooh, okay, we got a good demon state happening right now. Ooh, let me work through this demon state. I don't think it's that helpful. I have not found it subjectively to be as helpful as just doing the thing. Right? And not even in the sense of like, I got to push away the emotions and get the job done. No, sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes it's, no, you know what? My FI is the best tool for the job right now, and I just have to FI. So, fuck. Okay. And then, you can maybe, acknowledge it for a couple of seconds. But if you're constantly in your head while you're trying to do the thing, being like, oh my God, this is such a demon state. Oh my God, this is so hard. But it's important that I push through it. And even though it's hard, I'm going to push through. And even though it's hard, I'm going to push through. You have hemorrhaged so much fucking energy that could be applied to just doing the thing, like just using your FI, right? And then later on the back end, if you're like, oh man, I am starting to see a repeating pattern here of me having to use my FI 100% of the time at this job. Yeah, no, I can't do this anymore. But I can't, right? And again, look, one of the big things for me in New York was it was like the right function a lot of the time in New York is masculine SE and some kind of TE, which makes sense that I crushed it for so long. But then I was like, oh, you know what? My SE is still a demon. Like at the end of the day, my SE is a demon. And I can't do SE as often or as intensely as this city requires me to. I just can't. I do not have that. I do not have that in me. So like, that's really good to know. Over time, if you're looking to, if you're doing the look back and you're trying to build a pattern, trying to build a life, trying to do, something, sustainable long term, absolutely, 100%. That is potentially a very useful time to go, okay, overall, on Sunday night when I do my look back of the week, how often was I in a demon state? Right? That's probably pretty good information to know. But I wouldn't worry about it in the moment. I would just use the function that that the situation asks for. And here's the other thing, and this is maybe the thing to end on. If you doing the right thing poorly and failing at it is not good enough for the person you're doing it with or for, that is not a person, organization, team, family, job, apartment, whatever, that is sustainable for you. It just isn't. Because if you get your ass kicked by using your demon functions, you're like, for me, if I have to use my FI and I get my ass kicked for using FI when I was specifically asked to use FI, like, fuck that. Absolutely not. I'm just going to go somewhere where somebody, like, again, I'm not saying that I'm going to be like, I'm never using FI again. No, that's childish. We're better than this. But I am going to go, no, you know what? You can't ask me to do something and then get mad at me you can't ask me to do something knowing that it's a stretch for me and then punish me because it didn't live up to your standard because you knew that when you asked me. And I don't play that. I'm not about that. Right? This idea of like, I have to do the thing and get my ass kicked and keep coming back. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. The onus is on me to be like, all right, what group of people am I going to grow with? What group of people, what organization, what city is going to actually enable my growth? I think that's really important. I think it's really important. So all of this is to say, to bring it sort of as full circle as possible, right? When we're talking about objectively typing somebody, looking for contrast, Elon Musk versus Tony Robbins, yes, savior states and demon states are not only useful to track, they are critical to track. In the moment, and watching somebody freak the fuck out or spike or do something like that is like, ooh, that's a really good piece of information if I'm using this to triangulate and try to get the same 512, robot type as my partner. That's really, really useful. But humans in the moment, navigating the world in the moment is vastly more complicated and is not nearly so robotic. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice if we're trying to impose this very binary robot-like series of ones and zero, worldview of ones and zeros in the moment. I think that is not only a very hard way to live, I think that it's not a very useful way to live either. And I think that we are cutting ourselves off from a lot of the beauty in the world, a lot of our ability to be empathetic, to be caring, to lift each other up, to grow and give, to explore the gray area and to not be so binary about everything. There is a time and a place for that, absolutely. And knowing the difference, I think that is a really useful skill worth cultivating. And I know that I'm going to work on it, and I encourage you to work on it as well. All right, that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!